Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayant Udiyayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto the author Srila Vyasadeva. Today we are reading from the third canto, entitled The Status Quo, and we are on chapter 5, Vidura talks with Maitreya, and we are reading from text 37, one Sanskrit word at a time. Bhutanam
Bhutanam
Nabha
Nabha
Adinam
Adinam
Yat
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 Bhavya
Bhavya
Avara
Avara
Varam
Param
Tisham
Tesham
Para
Para
Anusamsargat
Anusamsargat
Yata
Yata
Sankyam
Sankyam
Gunan
Gunan
Vidu
Vidu
Bhutanam Naba Adinam
Bhutanam Nabha Adinam
Yad Yad Bhavya Varavaram
Yad Yad Bhavya Varavaram
Tesham Paranusamsargat
Tesham Paranu Samsargad
Yata Sankyam Gunam Vidu
Yata Sankyam Gunan Vidu
Bhutanam Nava Adinam
Bhutanam Nabha Adinam
Yad Yad Bhavya Varya Vahavaham
Yad Yad Bhavya Varavaram
Tesham Paranusamsarga
Tesham Paranu Samsargad
Yata Sankyam Gunam Vidu
Yata Sankyam Gunan Vidu
Bhutanam Nava Adinam
Bhutanam Nabha Adinam
Yad Yad Bhavya Vahavaham
Yad Yad Bhavya Varavaram
Tesham Paranusamsargad
Tesham Paranu Samsargad
Yata Sankyam Gunan Viduhu
Yata Sankyam Gunan Vidu Bhutanam Nabha Adinam
Bhutanam Nava Adinam
Yad Yad Bhavya Varavaram
Yad Yad Bhavya Varavaham
Tesham Paranu Samsargad
Tesham Paranusamsargad
Yata Sankyam Gunan Vidu
Yata Sankyam Gunan Viduhu. Someone online would like to chant the verse?
Bhutanam Nava Adinam
Bhutanam Nava Adinam
Yad Bhavya Varavaram
Yad Yad Bhavya Varavaham
Shamparanu Samsargat
Tesham Paranusamsargam
Yata Sankyam Gunan Vidu
Yata Sankyam Gunam Vidu. Anyone else? The word for word translation. Bhutanam,
Bhutanam,
of all the physical elements.
of all the physical elements.
Nabha,
Nabha,
the sky.
the sky.
Adinam,
Adinam,
beginning from.
beginning from.
Yat,
Yat,
at.
as.
Yat,
Yat,
and as.
and as.
Bhavya,
Bhavya,
O gentle one.
O gentle one.
Avara,
Avara,
inférieur.
inferior.
Varam,
Varam,
supérieur.
superior.
Tesham,
Tesham,
all of them.
all of them.
Para,
Para,
the supreme.
the supreme.
Anusam Sargat,
Manusam Sargat,
last touch.
last touch.
Yata,
Yata,
as many.
as many.
Sankyam,
Sankhya,
number.
number.
Gunan,
Gunan,
quality.
qualities.
Vidu,
Vidu,
you may understand.
you may understand.
Translation. O gentle one, of all the physical elements, beginning from the sky down to the earth, all the inferior and superior qualities are due only to the final touch of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no purport, so we are going to go to the next verse. Text 38. Ete deva kala Vishnu kala mayam shalangina nanadvat swakriyan nisha pochu pranjalayo vibun. Ete, of all these physical elements, Deva, the controlling demigods, Kala, part and parcel, Vishnu, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kala, time, Maya, external energy, Amsa, part and parcel, Lingina, so embodied, Nanadvat, because of various, Swakriya, personnel duties, and Anisha, not being able to perform, Pochu, uttered, Pranjalaya, fascinating, Vibun, unto the Lord. And so we can see from this word-for-word translation that paying attention to the syllables that are emphasized in a word are very important in Sanskrit, because we have Kala, which is the second A being a long A, that's a part and parcel, and we have Kala, which is time. So just here we can see how important it is to pay attention to those things. Translation. The controlling deities of all the above-mentioned physical elements are empowered expansion of Lord Vishnu. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his part and parcel, because they were entrusted with different functions of universal duties and were enabled to perform them. They offered fascinating prayers to the Lord as follows. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The conception of various controlling demigods who inhabit the higher planetary systems for the management of universal affairs is not imaginary, as proposed by persons with a poor fund of knowledge. The demigods are expanded parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and they are embodied by time, external energy, and partial consciousness of the Supreme. Human beings, animals, birds, etc. are also parts and parcels of the Lord and have different material bodies, but they are not the controlling deities of the material affair. They are rather controlled by such a demigod. Such a control is not superfluous. It is as necessary as the controlling departments in the affair of a modern state. The demigods should not be despised by the controlled living beings. They are all great devotees of the Lord entrusted to execute certain function of universal affairs. One may be angry with Yamaraj for a thankless task of punishing sinful souls, but Yamaraj is one of the authorized devotees of the Lord, and so are all the other demigods. The devotee of the Lord is never controlled by such deputed demigods who function as assistants of the Lord, but he shows them all respects on account of the responsible position to which they have been appointed by the Lord. At the same time, a devotee of the Lord does not foolishly mistake them to be the Supreme Lord. Only foolish person accepts the demigods as being on the same level as Vishnu. Actually, they are all appointed as servants of Vishnu. Anyone who places the Lord and the demigod on the same level is called a Pachandi, or atheist. The demigods are worshipped by persons who are more or less adherent to the processes of jnana, yoga, and karma, i.e., the impersonalists, meditators, and fruitive workers. The devotees, however, worship only the Supreme Lord Vishnu. This worship is not for any material benefit, as desired by all the materialists, even up to the salvationists, mystic, and fruitive workers. Devotees worship the Supreme Lord to attain an unalloyed devotion to the Lord. The Lord, however, is not worshipped by others who have no program for attaining love of God, which is the essential aim of human life. Persons averse to the loving relationship with God are more or less condemned by their own actions. The Lord is equal to every living entity, just like the flowing Ganges. The Ganges water is meant for the purification of everyone, yet the trees on the bank of the Ganges have different values. A mango tree on the bank of the Ganges drinks the water, and a nimba tree also drinks the same water. But the fruit of both trees are different. One is celestially sweet, and the other is hellishly bitter. The condemned bitterness of the nimba is due to its own past work, just as the greatness of the mango is also due to its own karma. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 16:19, Tamhaham vishata khuram samsareshu naradaman Kshipam yajaskam asubam ashurishveva yonishu. The envious, the mischievous, the lowest of mankind, these do I ever put back into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Demi-God like Yamaraj and other controllers are there for the unwanted conditioned soul, who always engage in threatening the tranquility of the kingdom of God. Since all the demigods are confidential devotees, servitors of the Lord, they are never to be condemned. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyanajala Shalakaya Shakshun Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Kadamayan Dadati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gorangi Ade Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvesesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Dejatarine Mukankoroti Vachalam Pangulangayate Girim Yakrita Tamaham Bande Shigut Dejatarinam. So I'm going to read both verses. O Great One, of all the physical elements beginning from the sky down to the earth, all the inferior and superior qualities are due only to the final touch of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The controlling deities of all the above mentioned physical elements are empowered expansion of Lord Vishnu. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his part and parcels, because they are entrusted with different functions of universal duties, and were enabled to perform them. They offer fascinating prayers to the Lord as follow. Okay, so I'm going to endeavor to follow Prabhupada's purport. Hare Krishna. So I wanted to make it a class like everything I always wanted to know about the Demigod but never asked. So yes, so here we heard about how the material elements get fused with the spiritual element, the part and parcel of the Lord, to create the Mahatattva. In that Mahatattva, there is desire of the living entities, desire and deserve of the living entities, and that desire and deserves of the living entity create false ego. Those desires create false ego, and from false ego come from the mind, the senses, and then from the senses come different objects of the senses, and each of the objects of the senses manifest different growth elements, 5 growth elements, and all that take place always through the glance of the Lord, starting with the Lord glancing over the material energy and to infuse in it, to impregnate the mother, the material energy, the mother, and Krishna the father, to impregnate the material element with the part and parcel. And so we are seeing like from the Mahatattva is the complete material manifestation. Everything is there, and it's there in a subtle form, and then little by little things come from subtle to physical, and so after all the objects of the senses and the material elements are manifested, and again they are manifested in their seed form. They are not manifested in their growth form, but they are always in a seed form. Then what's going to manifest is that through the agency of the Lord continuing to watch over creation, through his expansion as Mahavishnu, Karana Dakashayi Vishnu, then the demigods are going to be manifested. And the demigods, they are there because after the growth elements are manifested, then someone needs to be in charge of them to distribute them equally, to distribute them according to the way they should be distributed. And that's where the demigods enter. And so the conception of the demigod, Srila Prabhupada starts with like, okay, so even in Arjuna, uh, yeah, Arjuna, at one point he said, who are those demigods? He asked, who are they? Who are the demigods? So even Arjuna wants to know who are the demigods. And for us to understand that, because so much, in so many of the purport of Srila Prabhupada in a sense condemn demigod worships. So, like where to place them? Because we condemn the demigod worship, and so in one sense we feel, oh no, the demigod, I don't want to think about them. But that's not the point. That's not the way it is. Let me find Bhagavad Gita. That's not how it is. Because, Prabhupada said only people poor, with very poor fund of knowledge are going to deny the existence of the demigods because they are real. They do exist. And in many other mythology, Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, and Roman mythology, there were those demigods. However, those approach were more like demigod worship. Like Hinduism is mainly demigod worship, where the goal of creation, the aim of creation is lost. And when the aim of creation is lost, then demigod worship is kind of coming down to sense gratification. It's coming down to working hard to make a lot of money to enjoy myself. It's very similar. It's very similar because it's all about me, what I can get from the demigod, what I can get from my own enjoyment. So, and that's when it's out of purpose. It's off. And in that situation, then we are warned, like, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't approach the demigod separated from the aim of creation. There is a purpose to creation. There is a purpose to their presence. And I'm going to read from the Bhagavad Gita because I love those verses. Recently, I was in contact with someone who was like paganism is on a rise in the world. So very attractive. Like people are getting really attracted by paganism. So paganism also, I know in France there was the Druids, and there was paganism in France, and a lot. So as I was communicating with that person was telling me, it's so beautiful. There is such a harmony with all those gods and nature, and I say, yes, there is. I'm so happy that you're saying that, because there is. So in the Bhagavad Gita it said, Sahayagya praja srestva puruvacha prajapati anena prashavishyadvam eshavos trusta karmaduk. It says, it's chapter 3, verse 10. It says, in the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generation of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yagya sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things. So both the demigods are devotees of the Lord. They are also spirit soul like us, part and parcel. However, because they have rendered a lot of good service and they have also a lot of pious credit, they are more trustworthy. They are more trustworthy soul. Like they are not going to be grossly sinful. They are not going to be grossly selfish. And so because of that, they are empowered by the Lord. They are empowered, they are entrusted and empowered by the Lord to take care of the, uh, uh, the organization and the ruling and the controlling of the material cosmic manifestation. They inhabit the upper planetary system. And that's supposed to be a cooperation. And there is a host of human and demigods, and do yagya to whom? To Bhaktaram Yagya Tapasam, to Krishna, who is a recipient of all yagya. Bhaktaram Yagya Tapasam, he said, I am the recipient of all yagya. So okay, worship the demigod with, in fact, if someone were very sincerely understanding that system, and if someone had enough wealth and enough control of the senses and faith, then one could do worship to the demigod and get way more result than even working very hard or inherited from some wealth from someone, or any results in terms of beauty, in terms of getting a husband, getting a wife, getting happiness. This system works. It's just not possible now to perform it because we are in Kali Yoga and it doesn't. We don't have the qualification and we don't have the quality of life. But that system works, and that's what is there. That is that to replace factories, to replace cars, to replace fast-paced existence, to replace computers, to replace everything. There is a better system. So Krishna speaking, he said, in the beginning, he sent forth man and he said, be so happy. So he wants us to be happy. Notice, be so happy by this yagya sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things. And why do we want all desirable things? Kamasya nendriya priti, lobo jivata yavata, jivasya tadva vigyasya. Natayashya karma bees. Thank you. Yeah. So life desire should never be directly towards sense gratification. So we don't want to worship the demigods for sense gratification. That's clear. And one should desire a self-preservation or a healthy life. That's where they come in place. To the worship of the demigod, to the cooperation in the universe, to achieve the purpose of the material existence, which to realize God, to go back to our constitutional position, then that synergy between human being and the demigod take place to create that self-preservation, self-satisfaction, a healthy life. So that's where it takes place. And that verse say, and because the purpose of human life is to inquire about the absolute truth, and nothing else should be the goal of one's life, of work. So we are not supposed to work for anything else, but for the purpose of inquiring into the absolute truth. And the rest is taken care of. By whom? By the demigod. How beautiful that system is. If we do inquire about the absolute truth, if we do focus there, every desirable for our maintenance is provided by the demigod. Then the next verse said, in charge of the various necessities of life, so the demigods. The demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yagya, sacrifice, supply all necessity to man. So when we sacrifice to whom? To Vishnu. The previous verse said sacrifices to Vishnu. When we sacrifice to Vishnu, then naturally everything is in place. The system is in place. And then the demigod, they are obliged or they're happy because they are all devotees of Krishna and they are doing their job and they know the purpose of creation. They are happy to supply all our necessities. All our necessities. And so in charge of the various necessities of life. So they are in charge of the various necessities of life. The demigod, being satisfied by the performance of yagya, sacrifice, supplied all necessity to man. Well, that's it. But he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the demigod in return is certainly a thief. So if we don't understand that system and we take things for our satisfaction, not seeing like, thank you for supplying, thank you for having that service, the service of sending us all necessity, and we understand that the demigods don't act independently. You know, they are the controller of all those necessities, and they are bestowed the power to control those necessities, and the necessities are bestowed on them by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, but we do yagya for the pleasure of Vishnu. All our necessities are provided, and we are grateful. We say, here, you know, let's share together everything that's bestowed upon us by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then, verse 13 said, oh no, that's it. And 10, 11, and 12. Yeah, so that's it. And so that's a managerial affair. So we can also be especially empowered by the Lord. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada in his purport, he said, a pure devotee of the Lord. A pure devotee of the Lord, he have all the qualities of the demigods. And he have all the empowerment of the demigod. Everything is bestowed upon the pure devotee of the Lord. Why? Because the pure devotee of the Lord is no longer under the clutch of the material energy and no longer under the law of material energy. He's above it. So he's above the demigods too. And so he's not under their control. And I wonder where to go. Yeah, so there is something funny in a purport that Srila Prabhupada, he says, I think it's very naive, but I think Prabhupada said somewhere, we shouldn't despise the demigod. We shouldn't despise, the demigod should not be despised by the controlled living beings. And I was thinking, Srila Prabhupada, we are too ignorant to despise the demigods. We are too ignorant to despise the demigods. We are ignoring their reality. We are ignoring they exist. So when there is a hurricane, or when there is a big fire, or when there is any calamities, or when there is not enough water, or when Mother Earth doesn't produce enough, or when there is death, and we don't despise the demigod because we are ignorant. And so I was thinking, well, that's a good thing, probably. You know, we don't put them on our bad side. And Srila Prabhupada said, devotee really respects the demigods. He respects them. He respects that they are working for the Lord. They have a service to render, and they're rendering it very well with, you know, love and devotion. Of course, you know, they are devotees, but not necessarily pure devotees. And at the same time, they have special karma. They have a special karma due to pious activities, due to doing good to the world, due to so many things. And Srila Prabhupada said, like the water of the Ganges, the water of the Ganges will be like his mercies everywhere. Like the water of the Ganges, there's everywhere. Still, you will have a tree that produces sweet fruits. So that's a demigod. That's the trees that produce sweet fruits. And then you will have a trees that produce hellishly bitter fruits, which is a beam. What's the name of that fruit?
Nimba.
Bina. Anyway.
The Nimba tree.
Nimba tree. The Nimba tree. And so similarly, the mercy of the Lord is there for everyone. It's not like the demigod receive more mercy. And then, we in Kali Yoga lost in that miserable place. It's such a miserable place. It's so much pain to be here. Then, the Lord is impartial. The Lord is partial. No, the Lord is impartial. But due to our own karma, due to our own past activities, we may be producing mangoes or nimba fruits that are bitter. So the demigods, we want to respect them because they are pious, very, very pious living entities who are dedicated to the Lord, who understand Vishnu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who have done a lot of good for the world already, and because of their qualification, they are entrusted, they are empowered by the Lord. And for us, who are mixed devotees or practicing devotees, who are not pure devotees, how to relate to them in a way that is conducive for spiritual life. And that's another aspect of the demigod, is that they are devotees, and like every devotees, they want to help. Isn't it when we meet a devotee and our association is, we want to support each other, making progress towards devotional life, naturally. So every devotee wants to help other devotees to make progress in spiritual life. So similarly, the demigods, they are very happy to help us in spiritual life. The demigods, they are all devotees of the Lord. And so we can approach them if we choose to. Of course, we can just keep a neutral relationship with them. At the same time, Srila Prabhupada said we respect them, and we can also approach them like the gopis. The gopis, they were when they came in age to be married. The gopis, when they came in age to be married, they went and they did some worship to Goddess Katyayani. They did some worship to Goddess Katyayani, and they worship Goddess Katyayani with all paraphernalia and incense and flower and prayer and arti, and they worship Goddess Katyayani because they wanted to get Krishna as their husband. And because they wanted to get Krishna as their husband, they worship. So we can also approach the demigods in order to help us, like Ganesh help to have the power to bestow upon us, to take away the obstacle in the path of devotional service and develop a relationship. Like develop a relationship with the demigods. We can, and it's not necessary. What's necessary is for us to have a high respect. Like it's not necessarily like there is many devotees on earth, many devotees on earth, and I don't need to have a relationship with all of them to make progress in spiritual life. And even if there is pure devotees on earth, I don't need to develop a relationship with them to make spiritual advancement. All I need is to take shelter at the lotus feet of one pure devotee, and to fully surrender my life to the service of that pure devotee. And that pure devotee is going to bring me back to Godhead. So similarly with the demigods. And what else do I want to share? I want to read a little bit from the Bhagavad Gita, I think. Of course, there is a lot here in those purports. I will read from a purport from verse 10. The material creation of the Lord of creatures, Vishnu, the material creation by the Lord of creature, Vishnu, is a chance offered to the conditioned soul to come back home, back to Godhead. All living entities within the material creation are conditioned by material nature because of their forgetfulness of their relationship to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vedic principles are to help us understand this eternal relation as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vidaisya Charver Aham Eva Vedyo. The Lord said that the purpose of the Veda is to understand him. In the Vedic hymn it is said, Patim Vishyatmesvaram. Therefore the Lord of the living entities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. And the demigods are empowered administrators of the material affair. So empowered administrators. Srila Prabhupada gave an example in his purport of the government. The government. We can say, oh, I'm controlling two. I can control two. No, it's not that I can take on myself like, okay, I'm going to go in the road on the road, and anyone I see that's speeding, I'm going to arrest them and put them into prison. That doesn't work. If I was to do that, I will not. I will end up myself in prison because I'm not empowered by the government as a police officer. That's a very simple, gross example, but we can understand that. That we can understand that there is empowerment given upon some people who work for the government, that anyone, part of the population, cannot just acquire and say, oh, I'm in control of the traffic now. I'm in control of the budget of the city. No, that's illusion. There is people who are in control and they are being invested with that control. Same thing with the demigod. The supply of air, light, water, and all other benedictions for maintaining the body and soul of every living entity are entrusted to the demigods, who are innumerable assistants in different parts of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's it. Everything that's required for our maintenance, because the body is our vehicle, the Kshetragya, there is a knower of the field, and there is a field, the Kshetra, and that Kshetra is given to us by the demigods. And that Kshetra, the field of activities for us, is all supplied for with a purpose to bring us back to Godhead. And so the demigods, they're happy to serve that way. But if we don't use it for that purpose, then the demigods, they stop. They stop kind of giving. If we use it for different purpose, or if there is demoniac activities going on Earth, then Mother Earth, who is also demigoddess, Bhumi, she stopped supplying. And then Indra stopped supplying. Like in Europe now, there is, on one hand, there is flood in places, but like in Spain, I know I spent a lot of my vacation in Spain every year of my life when I was a child. I will go twice a year in Spain for vacation on the Mediterranean Sea. And now Spain is becoming a desert. Why? Because they exploited it so badly. So Spain is becoming a desert, and there is more places on Earth that are not supplied with water. There is a big crisis in Africa. People are dying of hunger because Mother Earth is not supplying food. Even so, there is enough food on Earth, but because of the greed of human, then there is not enough for everybody's need. So the demigods, they are super happy to supply when we are aligned with a purpose. And then when life is not aligned, when human beings are not aligned, then they kind of stop or they create problems, like Indra creates problems to kind of be an instrument of the material energy to kind of shake us out of our illusion of happiness. So it creates a lot of, problems, hurricane, flood, so many things happen. And those are not calamities. They are experienced by us as calamities. But in reality, they are really the mercy of the mother who say, come on, when are you going to turn to your father? I want you to turn to your father and you're not getting it. I'm going to help you. And I'm going to help you to step out of illusion, step out of false identification. This is time for you to realize who you are. And as soon as you turn to your father, everything is going to be bestowed upon you. We are all happy, all of us demigods. Durga is a demigod too. Material energy is a demigod too. We are so happy to bestow everything you need for your necessity. Stop this illusion. Stop this illusion. And I need to read something else. 75. So one should know, however, that all the necessity of life that the human society requires are supplied by the demigod agent of the Lord. So same thing repeated. When we hear something many times, we absorb it. No one can manufacture anything. So really, we are just in illusion. We are manufacturing because we cannot manufacture anything. And just if we, like life now is becoming more fast-paced, so much like very complex and complicated. Srila Prabhupada's motto was simple living and high thinking. And the modern age, it's more and more like complexity of thinking, of living, and really low thinking. People are really not using their intelligence anymore to just observe like, where is that coming from? Where are those vegetables coming from? They are not coming from the supermarket. The other day I was speaking with someone. Yeah, I think it was last Saturday morning. Jeremy came to the morning program and he bought a big bag of mangoes. And that big bag of mangoes, he lives in Sarasota, so a lot of people have mangoes tree. And Jeremy's roommate, he knocked on people's door and he said, I see that your mango tree have a lot of fruits. Can I buy them from you? Because I love mango and I love fresh mango. Can I buy them from you? And most people say, oh, you can just take them. And then you have varieties of mango and so much mango. And we were commenting on that, is that people almost, they are coming to a place that food is something that you buy at the supermarket that need to be put into a box, a cardboard box, or they need to be put on some stall. But even the stall, like most people don't even shop where there is a produce. They shop the other aisles. In fact, every time I go to the supermarket, I only go to the produce practically. Sometimes I go to milk, but that's it. And because the rest I buy bulk. Not that I don't buy, but like the produce section is maybe 10% of the supermarket, because food is not how it manifests more and more in this world in the form of package boxes, colors, containers, colored liquids, colored things that if you read the ingredient, there is practically nothing that is considered food. And so we were thinking about that. We were thinking how how the human beings are going further and further from even being able to recognize that a tree is giving me food. And even I've seen, even here in the neighborhood, like where we live here, there is many people who have fig trees. And the fig trees, at the time of fig season, all the figs are getting rotten. All the figs are getting rotten. People are not picking them up. So Mother Earth is producing food. She is giving us freely through the agency of her servant trees. And more, the modern society is going away from being able to acknowledge that food comes from trees. What to think of acknowledging that they come from the Demi-Gods. What to think of coming to a place that they come from Karat Karnak, Sarva Karanat Karnam, the source of all causes, the cause of all causes, and the source of all causes, the sources of everything, which is Krishna. So the modern society kind of bring us so far away from the tree, so far away, like we say the apple fall far away from the tree, but we are more and more taken away from the tree. And yeah, this example with Jeremy, and people give, and that person have so many mangoes, and Jeremy bought those mangoes, and those mangoes tasted so much better than the mangoes that I could buy in any of the grocery store, because at the grocery store they are imported. They are green mango that get to ripe in cases, in trucks. But those mangoes, they were ripe from the trees, and they were tasting so excellently sweet. So that's for the example of the mango. And then there's other thing, something else. So we continue. No one can manufacture anything. Take, for example, all the eatables of human society. These eatables include grain, fruit, vegetable, milk, sugar, etc. for the person in a mode of goodness, and also eatable for the non-vegetarian, like meat, etc., none of which can be manufactured by man. Then again, take, for example, heat, light, water, air, etc., which are also necessities of life. None of them can be manufactured by the human society. Without the Supreme Lord, there can be no profuse sunlight, moonlight, rainfall, breeze, without which no one can live. Obviously, our life is dependent on supplies from the Lord. Even for our manufacturing enterprises, we require so many raw material like metal, sulfur, mercury, manganese, and so many essential, also of which are supplied by the agents of the Lord. So the agents of the Lord are the demigod. With the purpose that we should make proper use of them to keep ourselves fit and healthy for the purpose of self-realization. So that's it. Yeah. Lobo Jivata Yavata. That's to keep ourselves in fit. All of which are supplied by the agents of the Lord with the purpose that we should make proper use of them. So we should use them. It's not like we don't use them. To keep ourselves fit and healthy for the purpose of self-realization, leading to the ultimate goal of life, namely liberation from the material struggle of existence. This aim of life is attained by performance of yagas. If we forget the purpose of human life and simply take supplies from the agents of the Lord for sense gratification and become more and more entangled in material existence, which is not the purpose of creation, certainly we become thieves, and therefore we are punished by the laws of material nature. A society of thieves can never be happy because they have no aim in life. The gross materialistic thieves have no ultimate goal of life. They are simply directed to sense gratification, nor do they have knowledge of how to perform yagas. Lord Chaitanya, however, inaugurated the easiest performance of yaga, namely the Sankirtan yaga, which can be performed by anyone in the world who accepts the principle of Krishna consciousness. So this yaga that's given to us, yaga to Vishnu in the age of Kali, by Lord Chaitanya, is a Sankirtan yaga, and the 11th chapter of 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, it says that by performance of that yaga, everything will be bestowed, and that's a yaga for this age, to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we can, by chanting Hare Krishna, we cleanse our heart from all the contamination of material existence and develop more and more devotion. And that's the goal, to act in devotion and pure devotion to Lord Krishna. Okay, I'm going to stop here. So I want that we discuss all that we wanted to know about the demigods but never asked. Hare Krishna. So I'm going to read the two verses first. Again, Sanskrit and English. Bhutanam naba adinam yadya bhavya varavaram desham paranu samsargat yata sankyam gunam viduhu. O gentle one, of all the physical elements beginning from the sky down to the earth, all the inferior and superior qualities are due only to the final touch of the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ete deva kala Vishnu kala mayam sha linganaha nanadvat swa kriya nisha prochu pranjalayo vibhum. The controlling deities of all the above mentioned physical elements are empowered expansion of Lord Vishnu. They are embodied by eternal time under the external energy, and they are his part and parcel because they are entrusted with different functions of universal duty and were unable to perform them. They offer fascinating prayer to the Lord as follows. And that's an interesting part. I didn't speak about it, but Lord Brahma also. Lord Brahma, he did so many austerities, and then he was there, and Sam, he said he didn't feel fit, he didn't feel capable of performing his service, and so he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said, "Don't worry, I'm going to take care of it." So similarly, the demigods, they are not puffed up. They will not be demigods if they were puffed up. Sometimes they get a little bit, because, they have a big position, like Indra or Brahma, or some demigods, they get a little puffed up. But they were unable to do their job, and so they started praying, and then the next verse is that coming is prayers, and so it's wonderful to hear the prayers of the devotees. Hare Krishna. Gauda Prabhu, I see that you have your hand raised.
Hare Krishna, good morning. Thank you for your class. I'm appreciating just kind of diving in more into demigod life. And I guess I feel like I have a lot of questions. My first question is, I'm looking at we're conditioned souls, and we can either be in Krishna consciousness or demoniac consciousness, my understanding. And then also the demigods are conditioned souls. And I'm just wondering, can they go in and out of demoniac consciousness and Krishna consciousness? Because I'm looking at for example, the pastime of Govardhan Hill, when Indra, they were about to, have a celebration for Indra, and then Krishna is like, no, kind of got everybody to do, something other than that. And Indra is really angry. And and I guess in my mind, I'm thinking like he must have been covered his consciousness, not realizing his position and his relationship with the Supreme, or like what's happening there? Is he going into demoniac consciousness? That's my question. That's my first question. Could you say more about that?
Okay, so there is gradation, and like in different ages and different time, like demon and demon and demoniac, they're in different bodies. Like there is lower planetary system where there is demons, and there is upper planetary system where there is devotees, and then the middle planetary system is kind of it's a mixture, but the more the upper you go to the heavenly planet, like there is an absence of demoniac quality, and the lower you go is like an absence of divine qualities. So, and there we are in the intermediary planetary system. And when it comes to Indra, I think there's a few things happening with Indra according to Srila Prabhupada. The one is that, yeah, Indra, he has a big position. He does have a big position, and he has a job to perform, and he wants to perform it well. And I think it's nice to be able to relate to Indra, because let's say I'm a head pujari in a temple. In a temple there is deity worship, and I'm in charge of I'm a head pujari in a temple. Yeah. And that's been entrusted by Srila Prabhupada. It's Srila Prabhupada's temple. And I'm really like in charge of there. And then someone is there that is inspired by Krishna in some ways to change something, to make some change. Then maybe because I don't understand what's happening, I may get angry and say, wow, you're interfering with my service. I have a service to do here. I'm supposed to make sure the pujari and everything is take place. So maybe out of my pride, because I'm not able to really see the hand of Krishna in every way, then I may act in a way that may be looking demoniac. And at the same time, it's in the name of my service. So like Indra, he has very important responsibilities to provide and to benefit a human being. There is yagya, and of course yagya for Vishnu, but it's kind of like, like demigods are not pure devotees. So there is, in a sense, sometimes Srila Prabhupada, he makes distinction like between being a demon and having demoniac tendency. And he described demoniac tendency as being anything that is forgetful of Krishna. So in that sense, we can see, okay, there was some forgetfulness of Krishna in Indra, that he took his role so seriously, and then kind of is imbued with that pride that this is for me, not seeing like, no, it's for Vishnu. It's a sacrifice to Vishnu. And also, like Krishna appears as a coward boy. He appears as a coward boy, which is not necessarily like the relationship that Indra has with his worshipable deity. The worshipable deity of the demigod is Lord Vishnu. And so he wanted kind of to see like, who is that Krishna? And testing his power. Like a similar example with Lord Brahma. There's so much to that pastime, because it is a pastime. He allowed Krishna to leave the Govardhan Hill. He allowed Krishna to be with all his devotees for 7 days, day and night, which none of them had experienced before. So there's so much to that we don't want to judge, and we want to be in full respect. And at the same time, we want to understand, okay, where is it that we can see in Indra's mentality forgetfulness of Krishna? And at the same time understand, well, maybe it's not forgetfulness of Krishna. It's Krishna using that person for a certain desire for a certain pastime to take place, like that.
Yes, thank you. Like Krishna was helping Indra forget him just so he could have that pastime. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, is yoga is in Mahamaya really yoga Maya also didn't see Krishna as a coward boy, and also, you know, like Indra is a supreme being in the material world, is a superior being, so he even can be bewildered and confused, an illusion, and not see that little Krishna, the little boy, coward boy, is a supreme personality of Godhead. So in that pastime, we get to see what it's really difficult for people to understand Krishna. You know, even in India, you can have people who understand Lord Ram and worship Lord Ram, but they don't accept Krishna, the form of Krishna, as a supreme personality of Godhead. So in a sense, he was furthering um, the understanding by having Indra, someone who was very powerful, being baffled by Krishna, that Krishna is a supreme personality of Godhead, because even someone like Indra was confused about his identity. Like we can be confused about his identity. Indra was confused about his identity. And then he got to also interact with Krishna. He got to bow down to Krishna. He got to, you know, it was so wonderful for Indra as a result of that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm reminded by the pastime with Lord Brahma as well, like taking the cowherd boys and you know, Krishna manifesting cowherd boys to replace them. Kind of, it seemed kind of like the same kind of thing, but with Brahma. But my other question is, so the demigods don't act independently from, like, Krishna sanctions everything that happens in existence, right? So, you know, someone goes to worship a demigod, and I know you mentioned in the beginning of your class that, you know, to do it like really effectively, it's not even possible in this age that we're living in, because everything's so degraded, our consciousness, and we don't even know the process anymore. And but I see there is still that activity going on where people are still, like in Hinduism, they're still performing these rituals to these demigods. And, you know, also looking at like people that don't even call them demigods, they might be doing, like, you know, even in paganism, or like some like demoniac communities that I've researched, where they're performing these rituals specifically for material gain. So I'm looking at like that relationship or that process is still here, and maybe it's not like as like potent and effective as it could be because of our level of consciousness. But I'm just like kind of wondering, like, okay, you know, Krishna is sanctioning still everything that's happening. And I guess my question is, um, it, is demigod worship still effective even at a small percentage? And then also, like, ultimately, like, Krishna is like sanctioning that experience if we are receiving material opulence or a beautiful wife coming into our life, because that's what we desire. I don't know, just kind of what's coming up for me. So yeah, could you say more about that?
Well, yeah, yeah. And I don't know the response to your question. Is it desire? Is it deserve? Is it the function of the demigod worship? I couldn't say. But I know there is a lot of demigod worship going on, and now more and more in the West too. Even Lord Shiva is worshipped for people who want wealth, and they are receiving wealth. Are they receiving wealth? You know, it's hard to know what comes first. Is that I worship the demigod, but they cannot give me anything that is not sanctioned by the Lord, but can they give me some things that I don't deserve? You know, that's question. I'm just putting question out there. I don't have response to that. But I know, for example, in India, there was a lot of people who were doing worship, I don't know, maybe to Kali, I don't know to whom. But there is a lot of Kali worship in India, a lot. And to make sure that Trump becomes the president of the United States. And he did. And he did. You know, it's just something I stumbled upon. So and with that. And, in a sense, we can look at um, um, demigod worship according to the way it's described in the Veda. In the Veda, it's described, you have certain rules and regulation, you need wealth, you need, you need qualified Brahmins, you need so much to have, the direct result. And it's amazing in the Bhagavatam, there is so many times where a king wants a son, and he gets a son from the worship of the demigods, for example. And so we can look at it from that perspective, or we can look at it like, well, we do sacrifice all the time. And we do sacrifice for our sense gratification all the time. We go to a job to get money, to accumulate wealth for, our satisfaction. And if it's not connected with Krishna, if it's not connected with, a fit body and a healthy body for worshiping Vishnu, then we do a lot of sacrifice for sense gratification, and that is going to create a reaction. So same thing if we do a sacrifice to the demigods and it's only for your sense gratification, it's not a free pass, but whatever is bestowed upon you by the demigods is sanctioned by the Lord. Krishna is, nothing can happen without the sanction of the Lord. And at the same time, like Akama, Sarvakamo, Moksha Kama, Udaradi, Tivena, Bhakti Yogena, Yajita, Pusham Pam, Poshampara. That, if someone has akama, if someone doesn't have any kama, any desire for sense gratification, or a lot kama, a lot of desire for sense gratification, or desire moksha kama, desire for liberation, then if someone worship Vishnu, like with Trivena, like with determination, then by turning to Vishnu, then not only our material desire may be fulfilled, but our spiritual desire also are fulfilled. So one thing that's missing when worshipping the demigods for our sense gratification is the demigod, they kind of bestow upon us, like Lord Shiva is known as Ashutosh. Is Ashutosh. So he's very easy pleased. So it's possible to please him because he's very easy pleased. But there is kind of a disdain with him, like, okay, you worship me, great, here, get. Because he lives in poverty stricken, his body is covered with ash, not with gold, and he meditates upon, Vishnu all the time. And yes, he has power. He can bestow upon us all the wealth. And he does that in a way that's kind of like, okay, here, get it. I don't care about you so much. I'm just going to give it to you. Versus Krishna, if we approach Krishna for material gain, he's going to give us the material gain in a way that's going to help us in our spiritual life. Either by, we are going to be burned by it in some way or another, or satiated with it, or, and he's not going to give it to us in a way that we want more and more and more. Versus the demigods, he will give in a way that is devoid of spiritual realization, and that will like put more wood in a fire, like that. So I don't know if I responded to your question.
Yeah, I feel like you elaborated more on, the relationship there, and I appreciate that very much. And yeah, another question I had was, looking at like how, like you were just mentioning, going to a demigod such as Lord Shiva. And you can see all the, like, very powerful demoniac characters that go to the demigods to obtain their power, and then they, just use it for their exploitations and their enjoyment. And just looking at like even, I mean, the reality of that in the world today, from my little research I've done, I can see that activity is still going on, whether they're like going directly to these demigods or they're referring to them as something else. But my question is, like, if these demigods that are like Lord Shiva, for instance, like that are bestowing these boons to these individuals, if they know that they're servant to Lord Vishnu or Krishna, then I guess my question is, how come they're not informing these individuals that they're bestowing these, boons to, that, hey, I can give you this and you can enjoy all you want, but I'm not the supplier of this. This is ultimately coming. It's almost like helping the individual raise their consciousness. Or does that happen? I'm just kind of curious about that. Why don't they like mention that? Like, the power is not coming from me. It's coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's
Well, there is an interesting example with that. Is like Hiranyakashipu, he was worshipping Lord Brahma, and he asked him for immortality. He said, I cannot bestow it on you. I don't have it either. So in a sense, Lord Brahma did say, like, there is a superior power. But people with demoniac desire, they don't really want to hear. Like, you cannot really force anyone to receive Krishna consciousness. And there is another example. Anyway, there's an interesting thing with Lord Brahma, because at the end, I think Nishingadev says something to Lord Brahma to the extent, don't do that again. don't give that much, don't do that again. Don't give that much power.
Yeah, it's the reciprocation, and there's many examples to illustrate the principle. So, like Lord Brahma, so his son is Narada Muni. So Narada Muni was like, oh, Lord Brahma, you're my guru, you're my father. Okay, and Brahma was very clear, like, I'm not the supreme, because Narada Muni already guessed that. So Brahma is revealing that. With Maharaj Chitraketu in the 6th canto, on Gira Muni. Okay, so he goes and says, oh, I want a son. He's like, okay, you have a son, be called Harsha Shoka. Okay, and then there's big tragedy and this and that. So Angira Muni comes back later, after the big tragedy, and then he gives him transcendental knowledge. So then the question is there, like, oh, why didn't you just give him transcendental knowledge first? Chitraketu was just so lusty to have a son that Angira was like, you weren't open to receive. You weren't open to receive. And so Lord Shiva has these so-called disciples, and just like intense material desire. I want to desire. I can destroy anyone's head just by touching it.
Yeah.
Okay. At the same time, at other times when Lord Shiva is approached, like in the 4th canto, Lord Shiva, it's called the Song by Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva has like 80 verses glorifying Krishna. He says he's who I meditate on, Sankarshan Krishna. So the demigods are reciprocating with the readiness and the desire of who's ever worshiping them. Also, part of the trick of demigod worship is that if you do demigod worship properly, which still has some potency, not like previous ages, if you do it properly, Vishnu does get a share. So there's some Vishnu bhakti in demigod worship. So it's kind of like a trick. There is some purification there. And yeah, as the conversations here, that's a whole theme that Krishna says. It's whole theme in Bhagavatam, in Krishna book. in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Hamajiri Devanam Maharshanam Sasarvasha. He says, I'm not one of the great demigods or sages. I'm the source of the demigods or sages. Right at the beginning of Krishna book, the demigod is in charge of earth, Bhumi. She's approaching Krishna. We talked about Indra. There's the demigod in charge of water, Varuna, right? He steals, he captures Nanda Maharaj. Krishna goes and shows his superiority. Krishna shows his superiority over Shiva, over Brahma. And it's like that's a whole theme about Krishna's superiority to the demigods, and the demigods ultimately, they understand that. So a few points there.
Thank you. They play the role.
Yeah.
That Krishna wants you, he needs to manifest his superiority to the demigods to help us.
Yeah.
And then the demigod plays their role as, approaching Krishna as if they are all superior and all, and then they get smashed every time.
There you go, that's smashed.
Thank you for adding to the class. Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Anything you'd like to know about the demigod? And the demigod worship, also another aspect to it that's not negligible, is that in a sense, in a yoga ladder, it's elevating, because I'm accepting, like the materialist is accepting I am God in a sense. My effort is going to create result. My effort create my food, my effort, which is, create air that I breathe, the place I live. So when one worship demigods, it say, it's already accepting authority. There is already a superior being. So it helps in a process of elevating one consciousness towards accepting higher authority than myself. Hare Krishna. Anything else?
Hare Krishna. I have a question, like very practical, personal from my life. In the garden, like we have a garden, and so my understanding is like earth is withholding because we're not, like, there's a lot of exploitation. So I was thinking, like, in my garden I grow vegetables for Krishna, so there should be abundance, and that's not what's happening. Like, there's, from what I planted and sowed, we should be able to eat vegetables from the garden every day, and that's not happening. So it's, I just have this question of why.
Yeah, so you're worshipping Vishnu, you're doing sacrifice to Vishnu, you are planting vegetable for Vishnu, and then you have a thought that I should have Mother Earth giving a lot of abundance to give to Krishna, and she should be happy with me and happy with my service and happy to serve Krishna in that way.
Well, according to philosophy, that's what should happen.
That's what should happen. And then, so there is two things that come to mind. Of course, there is a global, the global, like even when Prithu Maharaj milks the earth, there is that pastime. So King Vena was a demoniac king. And then Mother Earth kind of withdrew everything. But then King Prithu came, and he was a devotee, and he had to do a lot. He had to milk Mother Earth. There's an old pastime about King Prithu milking Mother Earth to bring her to, like, okay, now you need to come back, to keep bring her back, to bring the jewels and the gold and the vegetables and everything that was for the sustenance of human being. It didn't happen right away. He had to do a lot of effort to bring the earth to start trusting that I can give. So that's one thing that come to my mind. But also another thing is that, of course, there is Mother Earth and our relationship with Krishna, but there is also, like the deserve of the living entities. Do we deserve to receive that kind of abundance or not? There is, in one of the purport I read yesterday, I don't know exactly where, but Srila Prabhupada said, like, yeah, it's possible that in one place there is, even if people worship Krishna or Vishnu, that they won't be abundance necessarily according to deserving, or according, like, okay, like maybe the most conducive process for the people to go back to Godhead. So there is, I don't remember exactly the way Prabhupada phrased it, was way more precise than what I'm sharing, but I'm paraphrasing what I understood from it, is that even if there is, even if Mother Earth is amply giving, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to amply receiving according to what I deserve and what's necessary for my advancement in spiritual life. That element is there too. So the element of, yeah, Mother Earth is withholding right now. And it's not like she can, I'm going to bring here, but not here. She's withholding in general. And that pastime with Prithu Maharaj is kind of explaining a lot of that. And then even if Mother Earth was abundantly giving, there is my receiving on the other hand. What's my due or not my due? So that's also part of it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you for your response.
Yeah.
The whole relationship. Srila Prabhupada sometimes uses in regard to himself, like Srila Prabhupada at some point in his life, he was doing business simply to serve Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. And there was great potential, but then something wouldn't work. So Prabhupada quotes a verse from the 11th canto, Yasyamanagrinani Harishe Tatanam Shanai, that sometimes Krishna, to deepen our surrender, he'll just make sure that in the material realm, things aren't going to go according to plan, and to deepen the surrender of to just, okay, Krishna, I'm completely dependent on you. So there's different personal relationships there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's that aspect. Yeah, if we look at Srila Prabhupada's pastime, then that's very confusing, because when he was in Calcutta, after he left his business, after he left his family, he was in the street of Calcutta, and most days he didn't have any food. He was starving. He was completely starving, and he was just giving to 100%. There was nothing for him. He was giving him his full being to the service of the Lord, and he will get a little donation, and he will use all those donations to bring back to Godhead. But he was kept alive. He was kept alive, and there was, some people who sometimes were inviting him for dinner or like that, feeding him. But it's not like there was abundance of provided for him. So that's the other aspect, not because it's a deserve, but like because of his relationship with Krishna. That's how to increase his relationship of love and devotion with Krishna, which is Ananda Buddhi Vardhanam, that's always increasing. There's always ways to increase, and that was how it was increased.
Prahlad Maharaj was completely devoted to Krishna, but he didn't have a happy childhood. His father tried to give him poison. If you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Of course, he was completely blissful, but it works in different ways according to the relationship.
Did you hear that? Prahlad Maharaj. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not automatic. Nothing is automatic. Yeah. It's really, and the more we give ourselves to Krishna, the less it's automatic, in fact. In a sense, when we don't give ourselves to Krishna, then action, reaction, the material energy work like a machine. everything is kind of automatic. But the more we give to ourselves to Krishna, the less we are under that automatic machine, and then the more Krishna coming into place to purify our heart. Yeah. So I don't know, the relationship with the garden, maybe more fertilizer.
Or perhaps I should be more, I'm getting realizations about the receiving part, and, like allowing the mice and the slugs to receive what, perhaps we could receive if I were more fierce in kicking them away.
Yeah, and it's like with healing, we can be healing in one moment and it takes face. So similarly, like, there's so much going on. Hare Krishna. Thank you all. Kantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Aprimanandi. Ai, ai, boy.
Haribo.
Krishna.